Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal development, and a whole bunch of other weird, sketchy ideas. And we're trying to make you think twice before implementing that new idea you saw on the internet. Hi, I'm Brad James.
And I'm Michael Rampolla.
And today we're going to be your hosts, but today we're going to do something a little different. We're actually diving into the weird world of business ideas. And the goal of this is to ensure that you understand that it's an idea. It might actually be a good business idea. So if you're looking for side hustles, money, looking to start a new business, don't have your idea figured out, but you got all the stuff and you've been studying this, maybe this will give you some insight and some different ideas. So today's like a list building show. And Michael and I are actually going to hopefully come to some sort of consensus, maybe from the voice of God as well, as to what is the best business idea we share with you today. How's that sound, Mike?
It sounds like a lot of fun.
All right, Michael. So what weird business ideas, Michael, have you seen in the last, 5-10 years?
You know what? It's interesting. Some of the wildest ideas I've heard definitely came down to, I didn't know that was a thing, but now that you say it, of course that's a thing. I mean, that's the general theme, right? At least as far as the ones that are working. There's a bunch that sound crazy and then they're not working because they're truly crazy. But people who I think have it figured out is I call it the so crazy it just might work kind of crazy. You're meeting a real need with a real service that people will really pay for. And it's because you're willing to recognize that need and go for it that I think those things kind of work. I think we're not talking, we're not talking about the I tried it and it flopped and it failed.
We're not talking about bookkeepers either, or bookkeepers.
Bookkeepers. If now the bookkeeper accountant type, I think they're crazy because I wouldn't try to help somebody else figure out their books. But if you're talking about like the kind of bookkeepers that will like put my books in storage, keep them clean, and then give them back to me when I need them, and that's probably a business. It's probably a business. Somebody who takes all of my books, archives them, turns them into a system, and then when I need them, will actually deliver them to me like a private library. If that's not a business, I think we just formed one.
Yeah, I mean that should be a business. That should be. What about I'll throw one out there that I know works, and if you're working in a lot of local areas. And there's a lot of beekeepers out there, and there's a lot of people who are trying to learn how to do beekeeping. So there's another one.
Yeah, when I tell other people about bee pods, they say they do what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that should work, but it does because you've identified a need and a way to meet that need in a unique and different way, right?
There's a huge need, and there's a huge amount of people who are asking for what we do. And that's why we struggle with like the supply chain of things around the U.S. with this experience. Yep.
Yes. I mean, and I think yours business is a good example of the kind where if I say it plainly, it sounds completely out of left field. They rent bees and beekeepers.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and it works because what you're doing with, the educational model and all of that stuff. We can go way back to things that shouldn't work. I think our producer, when we were prepping, mentioned pet rocks. That was a thing.
Pet rocks.
I'm going to buy a rock.
Pet rock.
Just a rock. That's it.
All right. I wasn't old enough to where you had to that was mail order. That was literally mail order, right? You saw it in a magazine.
Yes. Back in the catalog.
You submitted an envelope with a check, and they shipped you a rock in a box.
Yep.
That's all they did, right?
That's it, folks.
There wasn't a name or anything, was there?
No, it was your pet. You got to name it once you got it.
Did it come with a letter introducing this is your pet rock?
That's a good question. I wish I knew the answer to. But pet rock is a rock in a box. It's the ultimate low maintenance kind of pet. You could name it if you wanted to, right? I don't know if it was a comfort pet, if it was the kind of thing you could legitimately bring on a plane with you as a service animal or not, but it was pet rock.
It was. What do you think? All right. Here's a fun question, because I think this ties into, we talk a lot about sales and marketing here. And what do you think they were selling? Like, what was it that was selling?
It's a great, on the Pet Rock. I think what they were selling, I think at first, okay, because it was the first, like, I don't know at first. I think after the first sales, it became the trend, the fad, the thing you had to be a part of. I think after after the early adopters, my prediction is that waves 2 and 3 were about being part of the experience, the shared experience of having a Pet Rock, right? But I don't know the answer to the first one. What were they really selling up front? I don't know.
Like, I think about it and I go, it probably wasn't status, right? They were selling relationships, right? So at a core domain, it was probably relationships, because it wasn't health or wealth, realistically. So that's an interesting one. Brian, we're going to have to do a deep dive on that. That would be an interesting case study for us to write up sometime from a marketing and sales standpoint. I'd like to dissect that, because I think, like, the ads around that, if I recall, I've seen some of the ads, and it's literally, all it is it's like, it shows this is the base and then there's a rock.
And that's it.
And it's got like eyes on it and a smiley face.
I don't know if it had a face. Did it have a face? I don't know if it had a face. I think we might be onto something. Now we're talking Chia Pet.
No. I'm saying there's another weird business idea. No, I'm saying, like, okay, that brings up a whole thing of, like, having a friend that can't talk back to you. This is totally relationships, right? Relationships and health. It becomes your thing you can talk to, and nobody's going to talk back and listen.
Well, this is good. This is pre lots of other communication forms days, right? So
guess how many of those rocks were sold?
Guess how many? Oh, gosh. 500,000.
A million.
I would say over a million. Yeah, I was going to say over a
million plus.
$4 each.
Yeah.
And $4 each.
$4.
And the rocks are free.
The fad lasted only 6 months.
Oh, that's a good run, though. That's a good run.
Oh, so
it's probably $4 plus shipping and handling too. So they probably made money on both ends.
Yeah. So, but think about that. What does that equate to in today's dollars?
All right.
Do we
Easily doubles, doesn't it?
What was $4 million worth? $4 million in, what was it, 1976 worth now?
On the fly research, folks. You get fact checking in flow on Sketchy Ideas. Just another value that we put.
So $1 million in 1976. Now, based on inflation, all right, this is nuts. Is just over $4.5 million. So
16. So that's $16 million in revenue.
No, that's more than that, Michael. That's 18. That's $18 million in 6 months.
I'm in.
Selling a rock.
I'm in. What do we do now? What can we sell? Dust bunnies. TM restricted copyright. We're doing it right now. We're gonna start selling dust bunnies in a box.
I think we lose, because I think this type of pet has been upgraded so many times. You brought up the Chia Pet. I remember when kids used to buy, remember those toy eggs that had a game on it? The Tamagotchi, yeah. And now I mean, then it went to Sims, right? And now everybody's just got this, so they just hide behind
the fuzzy one that plugs into my computer and creates a whole online experience. That's a thing.
Do you know what they brought back though? Furby is back, and there's like a whole line of stuff for kids around that same technology. Yeah.
Get it? I get, but I don't get it, but I get it. Okay, all right. Let's get out of this space.
We gotta move on. We could spend the whole day talking about this. All right.
Future episode, Pet Rocks. If you want to learn more about that, you let us know.
Hey, the point of this is the point of us like bringing that up again.
Yeah.
Think of how crazy that idea is. And it made $18 million. How much do you think they pay for each rock?
Oh, free. If you live by a river or like by open land, I'm just going to go out and like mining Bitcoin. I'm just going to go out and pick them up.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, but funny.
Is that how it works? Is that how it works?
No.
All right. I guess I'm confused on the business model. All right. So what else you got, Brad? What do you got for other crazy
business
ideas?
So just so everybody's aware, like if you scour the internet, but I wanted to highlight a couple. Brian brought up some interesting ones that I think are like futuristic, but they're not ones that you could do unless you're trying to scam people. So I don't want to talk about those.
Right.
Including buying real estate on Mars or the moon. And then Michael said, heck, I'm just going to start selling stars, where then I said, I'm pretty sure there's a service that does it and tracks it.
Probably.
It's like Brad will not be living on the moon with the rest of us.
Sorry, Brad, you're missing out.
That's all right.
I've already in 3 acres.
The shuttles.
There you go. That's another one. Yeah, and Brad makes a really good point, right? The pet rock works because you actually get the rock, right? And there's star registries and other kind of ethereal concepts where I'm not buying the thing. It's the experience of having the thing and the talking point, and the message is really what you're selling in that case, right? But that's not crazy business models.
Yeah. So one of them that I mean, and these are things, all right, I want to list the ones that people can do right now if they wanted to start diving into them.
Awesome.
There are companies out there that pick up dog poop in other people's yards. There are companies out there that supply food and services around funerals or people passing, right? Where they just put up an ad, and if there isn't somebody in the area who does it, or their family all lives far away, you create ads for those people on events via Facebook, and now people have a place to call, and you can go in and take care of their house, run their kitchen, all that stuff, right? That was another one. Guess what, friends? Everybody's working at home. Dog walking is still a good gig. There are, and along the food line, there's, with all these mail order food delivery options now, there are actually people who are doing the home chef thing and delivering food that's prepared so that the bachelor who doesn't cook doesn't have to cook. He just gets warm food. Let's see, what other ones are out here? A whole bunch that I'm scanning my list right now.
Well, it's interesting because what you're cluing me into, I'm already finding themes. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I want to establish it so we can come back to it, which is, and it's interesting because I'm actually going to pull back to, was it last week or week before? This actually fits our can't, won't, don't know how model. Here's why. The reason that those are services or businesses or products is because somebody either can't, won't, or doesn't know how to do that thing. And you can do, will do, and or know how to, or you actually have to have all three. And you're then filling need. I know how to pick up dog poop and I can do that. I just don't wanna. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to pay somebody to do it, right? Any service that provides a service that I could do, anything I could DIY, but I don't want to, or can't, or don't know how, or would take me too much to get that done on my side, that's an opportunity. And I know a lot of people they're starting to create, well, I know I love doing this, but who's ever going to pay for that? The person who either can't, won't, or doesn't know how to do the thing that you can, will, and love to do. There it is. That's on services. I think that's an across the board way to frame up a service provider business. What you offer is what they need. It's how a lot of businesses is reestablish themselves as we, in the first part of this year.
Right? Yeah.
I know in our area, the bar in Milwaukee that became not a bar, but a grocery store and just distribution channel, because they had a totally different set of distributors supplying them supplies than grocery chains, right? So they have a different access to the exact same things we all needed. Granted, the toilet paper was in bulk and single ply, but it was toilet paper, people. And that's how you win in a market. I keep talking over you, Brad. What do you got?
I was just going to say on that note, if you this works even if you're trying to pivot your business, like you were saying, right? There was a bar and they pivoted. They used their supply chain and they just resold, which right now is great. There was a place, there's a small group of people who are renting out board games in local communities. They've got a backlog of board games and they're just renting them out. And then if they don't come back with all the pieces, then the people get billed for them, right? I mean, there's crazy things. And this also stems from the fact, if you look at how a company like Netflix started, are you familiar with the story of Netflix?
Yep.
Okay. So Netflix, for those of you who don't know, actually started as like an idea and a concept in the 90s, like early to mid 90s, where they were trying to figure out, hey, what can we ship? And they tested like VHS tapes and other things, but they were big and bulky and the cost of having them was too long and they were easily broken. And then the DVD came out. But like the evolution of that company took so many pivots and it was just fulfilling a need. I mean, the whole video rental space started because VHSs became available and they started in grocery stores. And if you look at where people are at now in this realm of how the world's working, there's plenty of opportunity to create weird things. I can see, places that don't have strong parks and recreation organizations. There is now a need for like sporting goods rental, right? Because they can't put their kids into a program and they can't go to school and play this stuff. So rent out a bunch of soccer balls or footballs or basketballs or something along those lines, right? Like
Absolutely.
Those are all things that are important. Or think about, if you're not doing Uber or any of those other side hustles, you can still go and set up the grocery store business, especially if you live in a small market, right? Because you don't have Ubers and Lyfts necessarily there yet. You can set up grocery delivery for those places if they don't have it.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of places, but I don't know if we want to we're staying pretty like realistic. We haven't gotten into the deep, weird stuff.
All right. So what do you got? You got something weird?
We're already halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I shared with you the concept. There's a whole company built around bacon.
I like the foundation. I mean, I think we're already onto something there.
A deep passion for bacon. Yes.
My attempt at bacon. All right. So what can I do with bacon?
You can do a lot of things with bacon. I mean, they started out by just creating salt around bacon, like bacon flavored salt. I mean, I can imagine if you're Homer Simpson, you're just taking and dumping that down your like gullet.
Yeah. I don't need a delivery vehicle on that. I just need the direct.
I just need the bacon.
Yeah, I just need the salt. I mean, it's like, oh, I put that on chips or I put that on celery. No, just give me the thing and let's knock it back. It's interesting. Okay, so now you're identifying a passion around, right? So now we're getting that affiliative kind of business. Okay.
Chicken rental.
I'm sorry. I think you said chicken rentals.
I said chicken rental.
Okay. What happens if that one doesn't come back with all its pieces?
Then I'm sure you pay for it. But it's just like there's chickens, there's goats, like all of these places where if you want to test it out, there are people who are willing to rent you a chicken for a period of time to see if you can hack it. Right?
Got it. So there's a whole category of this rent, lease, partial ownership idea here.
Yeah, it's back to the days. It's a shift in commerce back to the days where you had co-ops and sharing, right? I equate it to like those little libraries you see now in a lot of communities where they're posted all over the place, where people are like, take a book, leave a book. And those work great in terms of like building community and building like cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
There are other places that are now doing things like I said, the board game rental was one of them. They set up a storefront in an empty storefront and said, hey, we're going to do this. And it's by appointment only. You come in, you pick out your board game, you take it home, you get it for as long as you need, and you go from there. Yeah. Like those are things that I think if you're looking for for simple, small ideas that you could do, I look at that idea and I go, great. Hey, I would aggregate all of my friends and I'd go, hey, what board games do you guys have on hand that you're no longer using or don't want to play? And you put an inventory together and you go, hey, we're going to rent these out. Come pick it up,
I like it.
Take a credit card and then deal with it later.
Well, what's nice is there's so many tools that turn my supply and inventory and help me find the people who need it and take the payment in the middle. I just need to figure out the stuff, is what you're telling me. It used to be you have to set up all of your back-end infrastructure and your whole business model. I know there's a lot of people who do things that are in the space of drop ship and direct ship, and you don't have to actually hold all the stuff anymore, right? You can acquire the stuff, have the stuff go somewhere else, and when you need to send or sell that stuff to somebody, it can get sent or sold from there and go right to them, and you never hold on to the inventory, as opposed to the old days where you needed, right, the basement or the garage and all that carved out space to hold on to inventory. Like, that barrier has come down too.
Yeah, I think, and that's the part of this whole thing, is that going into next year, those of you who are struggling to figure out, hey, maybe you don't have your gig anymore. Maybe you got to pivot. Maybe you got to do something else. Maybe your part-time job, which was serving you no longer can dive into because they're closed or they don't need your help, right? Beginning to think outside of the box, right? And this doesn't mean the skill set stuff isn't important, right? There's grant writers out there. There's a need for grant writers. There's a need for marketing people. There's a need for sales people. If you're looking for a really good job and you're worried about making money next year, figure out and learn sales and apply yourself and go work for a company that's going to pay you commission and just do it. Like, if you make things, right? If you've been spending a ton of time in your garage with your tools and you're making stuff, go put it on Etsy, Amazon, a website, put it out there.
Right.
And see what happens. There's an endless array of things that people could do. You just got to go do it.
But people don't.
Remember the hedgehog?
Hedgehog. That's hedgehog. You're right. You're right. So I'm hearing you encouraging the hang up is, well, I guess we're not really saying, but the hang up is what happens if it fails, right? What happens if it doesn't work?
I've failed plenty of times.
Fair. Folks, what happens if it does work? Like, there's also fear of success, right? So the only way
you know what happens when it does work? You know what happens? You make $18 million selling a rock.
I love that idea. I'm jealous of the pet rock, right? Now that we know the numbers, everybody's, pet rock. And then Brian goes, they sold $1 million at $4 each. Thank you again, Brian, for context. So I guess, yeah. So what I'm hearing is I'm going to go back to this just for a second. You have stuff, when you look around you and you look at the things that people look to you for or know you for, right? Mm-hmm. More importantly, I mean, I know bookkeepers, and we joked about bookkeepers, like the accountant type bookkeepers. The reason some of them got into independent work is because they love that stuff and they know not everybody does, right? Actually, look at my sister, who is an accountant. She's, and when she was working her way through her career, she had an awesome line on her resume. I hope she still uses it, which is, I love accounting, so you don't have to.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's the whole concept in a nutshell, right? I love this. Let me do this so you can do what you do better, right? That's outsourcing. That's outsourcing of any kind. Outsourcing marketing, outsourcing, business coaching and strategy support. All that stuff is there's this thing we love to do. You need it, but you don't love to do it.
Here's one for, like, I know there are a lot of support staff who are out of work right now because they can't go into the office.
Right.
I mean, Michael, you and I work with remote teams almost exclusively right now. Yep. And I dare to say that when we find quality teammates, we don't let them go. Like, if you used to work in an office as a support staff person, you should have no problem finding somebody who needs your help right now if you're willing to work remotely.
I agree.
I just think Like even with all of these things all of these businesses we just talked about, if it gets going, eventually, typically the first hire is a support staff person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sorry, I'm just looking at some of these other
That's
ideas.
fine. While you're doing that, let me actually prove your point. So, one of my career, oh, I don't want to click on that link. One of my career stops was at Manpower Group, and Manpower, the staffing company, was founded on a crazy idea at the time. They created the concept of temporary staffing. They invented basically the whole model. And they invented it because they had a secretary who was out, I remember if it was maternity leave or sick or something, and they needed somebody to step in temporarily. Person came in. Oh, I remember what it was. They had a legal brief that was due, and they needed extra capacity to get this thing out the door and in on the deadline. So they called up that's what it was. Called up an old secretary that came in and saved the day. Awesome. And then when that was done, the two lawyer partners sat across each other and goes, we can't be the only ones who have an occasional need for additional staff. And they looked into it. Nobody was providing that service, but absolutely everybody had that same need. And thus temporary staffing was born. But they had to get their concept through a bunch of people who didn't understand it. Wait, you're going to do what? I'm going to provide you somebody for a short time. And when that time is over, they come back to us and you don't have to. I don't understand, right? Like people couldn't get their heads around it. So their traction took a while. And now we've gone past all the way through temporary staffing to temp to hire. And now the gig economy is all based on that exact same premise that sometimes you just need a little help.
Yep.
And who can help provide that help to you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and there's got to be companies out there. I just like, for example, I just, as I was scrolling through this list that I just literally explored the internet, friends, called Dirty Rotten Flowers. It's a company that if you go through a bad breakup and you want to send bouquets of dead, rotting flowers to your not loved ones, you may do that. I
can see an occasion for need of that. Not personally, I can see how someone else might have occasion for need for that.
Right?
Well, that reminds me of my personal favorite, which is send glitter to your enemies, which the name says it all. Mm-hmm. That's a service. Mm-hmm. So here, and I wanted to just drop this in there as well. So I mentioned temporary staffing when it first was created, got a lot of pushback because we didn't want to, that doesn't make sense to me. And I would share another business model. Hey, Brad, I'm taking a vacation this week and I'm actually going to be out of my house. I want to pay some strangers or have some strangers pay me to stay here while I'm gone. What do you think? Think that'll work?
Sounds a lot like, it sounds very similar to what is one of the largest companies, or at least was, and still kind of is, Airbnb. Right?
Thank you. And that's how they got started, right? I think they originally was just couch surfing. I mean, back when that was a thing, right? And then it turned into rooms, and now people have whole second homes that they operate as hotels on their own.
There's a guy who makes bed bug barriers for those who travel and go to hospitals.
Of course he does.
It's literally a thing that raises the sleeping surface up so you don't get bed bugs.
Genius. Genius.
All I'm saying, friends, is if you've had that idea and you got that free time right now because you're not doing the Christmas stuff and you're not doing the holiday stuff and you're worried about 2021, now's the time. Like, take some time, dig into it, put some teeth into it. And if you need help with that, part of the reason Michael and I are doing this is because projections of entrepreneurship and solopreneurship and startups across the world going into 2021 is supposed to double or triple next year, based on how this year went. And it's not necessarily out of desire or want for a lot of people, but it's out of necessity. So one of the things that Michael and I have been talking about doing is helping people like with a quick boot camp type of thing that I think I'm going to be running later this year, probably between Christmas and New Year's. So if you're interested, I mean, that's setting up a business takes a little bit of work. And part of what Michael and part of the reason we do this is because we know there are a lot of people out there who run businesses under the radar and then eventually get in trouble, or it messes with the stats, which messes with the funding and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so we I want to make sure that you're set up for success, that you got some tools in place so that business doesn't get overwhelmed. Michael and I have failed enough where we've made those mistakes in the past, and more than once sometimes.
Right.
And for me, part of what I enjoy seeing is people have success off the bat because they're not dealing with the things that they're bad at, or they forgot about the things that they're bad at. So long story short, dive into it. There's a bunch of tools out there. We'll talk about them during that short course. We'll have more information on that course, everything.
Nice.
But
awesome.
I think, I don't know about you, but like if we could create a list, I just want to create a laundry list of like all the weird businesses, and you can find them. But some of these articles are really old, and some of these I know we haven't thought of or we didn't talk about, right? We didn't talk about like the rage rooms, or we didn't talk about like there's one that's a squirrel census, or we didn't talk about like random stuff, random idea. There's people who recycle jeans and turn them into products. You know, I mean,
I can see that. I can see that.
Because there's a bunch of people out there who are into the Canadian tuxedo feel of things and want their whole pad to be decked out in blue denim.
The Canadian tuxedo.
You've never heard of that?
That's fantastic. Love you, Canada.
Love you, Canada. Yeah.
Love you, Canada. I think I like this idea. So I like the idea of exploring it. And I think maybe let's explore that idea, and then let's see what kind of feedback we get. And then let's pick a few favorites and let's break them down, because Pet Rock, I think, like that's a good example of the idea of why is this working? Because folks, we want to help you reverse engineer your passion into a lucrative enterprise, right? And Brad made a really good point. I just want to echo it, which is, and I was actually talking to somebody just earlier today about, I'm trying to get my business figured out. My important question was, are you already making sales, or are you still a concept? And the reason I'm asking the question functionally is, have you already validated that somebody will pay you for that? Once you have one person paying you for it, that's all we really need. Because now we have at least the demographic that we can then turn into more sales. But if you haven't put it out there to see if anybody's going to buy it, we don't know yet. If you put it out there and nobody buys it, okay, then we figure out why not. But if you don't put it out there at all, we don't know. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Insert other, Pinterest cliches here. You need to put it out there and try it. Launch your beta pilot prototype before the end of the year. Brad and I are going to help you with that. And then let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yep. You never know, guys. And honestly, to just get it up and started and try it, it can't hurt right now. That's where I'm at. Like, I think there's so many people out there exploring. And if you follow the forums that I follow in or these groups that we're in, and you've got new people coming in who've lost their job or are looking for new income, or they got laid off or a pay cut, or their benefits are cut, and they're trying to find ways to do other things, or they're just sick of not being in control. And now's the time, because there's no other time like now, because you don't have the holiday parties. You're not doing all the holiday shopping stuff. You're not going out to eat. You're probably saving money. You're probably rearranging your schedule for next year and that big vacation you might have planned. Now's the time. Put that energy into something productive at the end of the year. Get set up for 2021 so that you can make sure 2021 is a quality year, regardless of what happens. I think that's like a big deal. So,
I agree.
But hey, we're actually out of time. We cruised
there we go.
So,
there we went.
So I hope you enjoyed all these different ideas. We are going to talk about these more. I really think this is an interesting concept for us to dive into. And if you have suggestions or want us to dissect the business model, or you've heard about a company, send us your questions, info@sketchyideashow.com. We'll get back to you and we'll begin talking about you. And if you do that, we might have you on the show to be like a third person in this weird three-legged stool, so we can add a fourth leg to balance things out. I mean, that would be helpful.
That'd be nice.
And then I think when we dive into that, we're going to begin to see, you guys see what Michael and I do when we dive into this stuff. It's not surface layer stuff. We dive deep, because what I've learned in the years of doing this is the details matter. Understanding and living at the vision and the high level area map is important, and you have that as your guiding star, but the details of how you execute it and the tactical stuff is really important. So with each of these business models, it'll be interesting. Like we began to dive in with the pet rock, with the mail order and how they executed it, and ads and all that stuff. But we'll do that with all these other ideas, especially because I've had some of them contact us about being clients. So
bring them on. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do your thing. Yeah.
But with that said, before we sign off, we got to say a thank you for today's episode. Today's episode was powered by Queen City Marketing, a small, medium-sized business marketing company. We service you. We do stuff like this, but we really focus on agency type work, social media, ads, funnels, campaigns, all that stuff. Whatever you need, traditional or digital, we can help you out with that. And our other partner is
also powered by Spirity. We support business owners in helping them grow and scale their business, and HR leaders in helping them grow and scale their talent. Spirity, overcome the obstacles to your greater success.
I like that. We're getting better at those things, those calls.
Every time a little better.
Every time. Hey, with that, friends, thank you for watching episode 21. Wow. We've been doing this for 21 episodes.
That means we can drink.
Michael's probably getting sick of me spending every Wednesday with me in the afternoon. It's okay. Brian's probably sick of hearing my voice. That's okay too, because I'm going to be back next week for more. So with that, come back next week when we dive into some more sketchy ideas. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.